Hello and welcome back to the Madaxeman podcast. It's been a while since the last one. This is our first podcast of 2019, but hopefully we'll be back on the old podcast wagon and rolling forwards in this new year of wargaming. And in the meantime, I'm sure you've been able to follow some of the usual rubbish which gets churned out and spat onto the internet from Madaxeman.com. Painting, battle reports, all sorts of other different bits and pieces. So this time we've got a transatlantic phone interview with Henry Saglio from the States. He took part in the recent US team tournament for ADLG, playing in the medieval pool with very interesting army and some very interesting opponents as well. So we have a chat about all things wargaming, which obviously includes beer. There has to be a reference there. I think there's some chat about facial hair coming up, which you can listen out for as well. And two guys talking over a Skype connection about how 4 games of soldiers, or possibly even 5, went that you won't be able to see. It's going to be audio gold, and I have actually listened to it, and some of it is actually quite good. So without further ado, let's go back in time a few days ago to when this was recorded, and we'll kick off the podcast. Enjoy the podcast. Obvious first question. Which part of the States are you actually in? You know, as we're transatlanting it here.
All right. Well, first of all, call me Tucker. That's what everybody
Tucker. Okay, Tucker.
That's my middle name.
That's your wargaming alias.
My alias, I suppose. So,
it's always best to keep this.
Henry was my grandfather.
Right.
So if you do a Google search for my name, all you'll come up is results for him.
And obviously he wasn't as famous or as good looking as you, or as successful, but still.
No, he was a lot more famous than I was. He was a chicken farmer.
Oh right, okay then. Oh. Fine. So that must put you obviously in the heart of the city then, or something like that.
So I am originally from New England.
Okay.
But I currently live around Washington, D.C.
So you're on the you spend a lot of time on the I-94, shouting at the traffic. 95. Sorry, getting my freeways and highways mixed up there. Then, good. So, well, I guess we can go 2 ways with this. We can either have a long, interesting conversation about chicken, or we could talk about toy soldiers and the recent US team tournament. If we had some very clever interactive online thing, we could probably do a live public vote, but maybe in the absence of that, we should probably talk about the world of ADLG and the US team tournament. So is this the first time you've done this event? Because I know it goes back to the DBM days, and it probably existed under FOG for a while as well. Is this one of the first times you've taken part, or is there a long history of Tucker at this event?
No, this is the first time that I went to the event.
Yeah.
And I went because it's literally held down the road. I get there in about 5 minutes.
Right. Okay. So you're actually pretty close to DC then, because the event was in. Just trying to think where it was exactly. It was. Cause I think it might be a game shop I've actually been to.
Yeah, it's called Huzzah Hobbies. It's right by the Dulles Airport.
Right. The one. Yeah, because the one that I've been to is in what is it called? Along the metro from King Street. There's one a bit further out on that part of town. But okay. So it's near Reston or something like that, is it? Or
that's exactly right. Yeah,
right. So in the new fashionable hipster, everybody's got a beard and drinks expensive lattes, kind of up and coming outskirts of DC. There's a world of middle-aged guys playing toy soldiers.
Well, you have a lot of hipsters, and you have a lot of former military.
Yeah.
We draw from the latter pool.
Okay. So I guess there's also craft beer as well, which is a pretty
quite
good
a lot of craft beer. Yes, very good.
Yes, excellent, good, fantastic. Okay, all right. So what we want to do is kind of talk through the games. I've got the stuff up on screen here that you've helpfully posted on the ADLG forum, but also kind of more importantly, in some ways, is to talk through the army and your kind of thinking on putting this army together, and see if we can kind of pick some nuggets of intelligence out of it to share with a an exciting waiting world of the literally dozens of people who may well listen to this in future, or sometimes more, but which we'll be able to check online. So, is this an art? There's 101 different ways why to choose an army, and there was this tournament had a pretty interesting format. It was what I would categorise as fairly tight theming, in that the number of lists you could pick in each period was kind of in the sort of 15, 20 or so mark. But they seem to be decent themes in that most people should be able to cobble together some sort of army with using troops for it. Was it a difficult choice for you to pick the army out of the list that you had to choose, or was it one where this is the stuff that I've got, so I'm kind of going down this route?
Yeah, for me personally, it was easy because I only own 2 armies.
Fantastic. So, that's good. And you love them both?
I love them both.
Excellent. Good. So you're going with Condottieri, which is a very popular army because, I always think this is the classic Wargamers army. It's got all the toys. You can pick almost anything in it, and you can put something together that looks kind of cool. Is that kind of how you approached it, or is there an Italian flag fetish background along with your chicken-based background that we should all know about?
Well, my ancestry is from Italy. So
okay.
There's a tiny little bit of that going on.
Well, let's call it that. It was your army in spirit for sure.
But I originally collected one because I had a friend who had Hungarians and Ottoman Turks.
Okay.
And I picked the Condotta, specifically the Venetian Condotta, because they were a historical match for both of those.
My God, there's probably competition wargamers around the world shivering in revulsion at such a kind of proper wargaming thing to do. But no, that's excellent. It's a good army as well. So you're putting this together, and I always think you start at the top of the army list, and you've got the 3 commands, and you've gone brilliant, ordinary to use up the pretty good +4 command and control. And reading it through, and we'll pop this on the screen if we do a YouTube version of it as well. So your first command, reading it down here, you've got 2 ordinary heavy knights impact. You've got a couple of crossbowmen. You've got a couple of medium swordsmen halberdiers, and the elite firearm infantry with a brilliant command. The second command you've got pretty similar. It's 3 knights this time, still 2 crossbow. Instead of the swordsman, you've got a light horse with crossbow, getting you the scouting points, and then a heavy artillery. So that's an interesting command. We can come back to that one. And then command 3, which has got the ordinary general. This does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? 3 knights and a couple of elite Javelin light horse. So talk us through this. Was this an army that you thought, I'm picking it with a plan in mind to take on a particular enemy, or a plan about I intend to deploy this like this, or what was the thinking behind that structure? Was there a top level way of approaching it?
Well, my guiding principle was to be water. Bruce Lee, the Kung Fu.
Right. Yeah.
Now, his theory for martial arts was that you must be water. So if you are if water is in a cup, it becomes the cup. If water is in the bowl, it becomes the bowl. So the theory was to build an army that could react to and adapt to a number of different circumstances, and not so much impose my plan on the enemy, so much as take away what I perceive to be his strengths or his plan.
That's interesting. Yeah, because now that's made me think. Actually, I'm looking at this and thinking, if this was set up on the table opposite me, and I'm trying to play against this, I'm suddenly looking at that list and struggling to find something to aim at. there doesn't look like there's a center or a way to envelop it or whatever. It's three lots of knights that can work together. They can work separately. They can sit anywhere across the table. Yeah. And the heavy artillery is the only thing that's really going to be static there, isn't it? The rest of it is movable, could work anywhere. So and is this an approach that you've kind of tried and tested, or was this an army that is this a way that you've found as being successful playing?
Well, I played about, I don't know, a dozen or so permutations of the army.
Okay. Yeah.
Trying out different builds. I found out that you probably don't want more than one artillery. It's nice, but one is kind of the right amount.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also found that if you take heavy infantry, the options for the Italian heavy infantry, I mean, it varies from city-state to city-state. But generally speaking, you can only have a small amount of heavy infantry. And if you take your infantry as heavy, that means you can't take it as medium. So I can either take the halberdiers as medium or heavy, and if I take pike, well then I kind of want to take the halberdiers as heavy to be their friends, command together. And so the issue was building commands that kind of work together both individually and collectively.
Yeah, because each time I've tried to put this list together myself, and a lot of the times you see it. To me, looking at the list on page 202, almost I would start with this list by going, right, 2 mediocre pike and something to sit in between them. So suddenly I've got a block of 3 things, and then you're right, you have to bolt them on, and suddenly you've sucked up a lot of points and you don't have much left for the knights. So this is almost, is that because you kind of struggled with making the pike and the heavy infantry work, or was there an anticipation of the potential enemies in this period?
I think it was more the latter than the former. I think you can make the pike. I think you can make the heavy infantry work.
Yeah.
But if you want to take on elephants, around here in Northern Virginia, elephants abound. There are elephants everywhere.
That must be terrible for the chickens, I imagine. But
you have no idea. You have no idea. Go outside and there's a pachyderm just.
The traffic on the I-94. Oh, awful! Well, an elephant could do terrible damage to that. In fact, I just as an aside, I years ago with work, I went to India, and being taken from the airport in a cab about 1 a.m. when the flights land from London, we did nearly run into the back of an elephant in dense fog, because as I worked out, they don't have rear lights like cars, which is a challenge, and I imagine that would be the same challenge on the 94 with some of the fog that gets around Virginia as well. So actually, yeah, again, I'm now looking at your list again with context and thinking about this theme and going, actually, yeah, this is a Venetian army to deal with the possibility of big watches of elephants, and some of the armies that can come in what is a post X date sort of list.
Right, because if you look at the late medieval period, you're basically trying to deal with elephants, some pike or longbow, and then really good quality shooting cavalry, Mongols or Mamelukes or what have you. And so if you deal for those, everything else knights can just kind of kill normally.
Yeah.
But I feel that you need to do special planning to deal with those 3 threats.
Okay.
And so the number of ranged elements in the army, are they called elements in this game? Units?
I think units, elements, bases, I think, one of the great things about ADLG is we've all got too old to be fussed about that stuff. It's just troops on the table, isn't it?
Well, I'm actually a relative spring chicken, as board gamers go. I'm not even 40 yet, So
congratulations. I knew there was one. I knew we'd find one somewhere. Fantastic. Excellent.
But,
good stuff.
Nobody else uses the proper terminology, and I'm too lazy to figure it out on my own.
Okay. Well,
anyway,
let's call them units. Let's call them units. That sounds more normal, doesn't it?
The number of ranged units contained in the army were there to combat all three of them.
Yep.
Because obviously they let you outshoot the cavalry. They force elephants to play conservatively, and they're actually pretty good against the elephants in combat, or as good as anything else is.
Yeah.
And then against pikes, especially against mediocre pikes, they can combine with knights to really put them on the horns of a dilemma, where the pikes either have to charge your knights, or they have to sit there and get shot.
I can see it. I can actually see it. Yeah, I can see this working. So let's move on then, and I guess talk about how it played out in the games. Because looking at it, you've got your Venetian army. It's tooled up to take on elephants, and first up, you're in a world of elephants. You're playing the Khmer. I think a world of elephants is probably the right thing. They've got medium infantry in between them. They've got the usual rubbish cavalry that every pseudo-Indian Southeast Asian army seems to have. How did that work? Was this the plan working? How did the terrain set out? And how did you set out against what I imagine was a pretty solid line of elephants and mixed foot?
Right. So the Khmer, basically there are two kinds of elephant armies. Those that have good troops to go between the elephants, and those that have poor troops that go between the elephants.
Yeah.
And the Khmer have poor troops.
Okay.
So, against that, what you usually want to do is charge your knights into the poor troops and ride them over.
And just tough it out. Take some casualties against the elephants and just ride the thing down. Exactly.
You want to kill the medium bowmen, whatever they are, and keep on going.
Yeah.
And so, what happened is that I ended up defending. I won the initiative roll. I won the initiative roll for every game during the tournament, which was not entirely unexpected. Had a +3, but still pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
And I elected to defend in the plains because a plantation is bad for the elephants. Elephants don't like plantations. But my medium infantry, my elite handgunners can fight well from the plantations.
Okay.
And also,
there's an interesting question there about and I think defending versus attacking is one of those things in ADLG. You start off thinking this is a no-brainer. I have to attack. I've got to move first, deploy second. That's brilliant. And then you get to a point of realizing the control over terrain that defending gives you. As long as you've got a plan to use that kind of works. But I would have wondered against these wide elephant and rubbish mixed armies. You kind of know how they're going to deploy because they've only got one trick. Really, they're just going to deploy in a big line in stuff they can roll forwards. So if you let them move forwards, are you not losing your depth to redeploy or concentrate on a particular area of the table, or was your plan just to have done that by deployment anyway?
Well, there were two facets. The smaller, much less important facet was that you can kind of predict where the elephants are going to go, and that let time, and you can time their advance. You see how far they're going to be in a given turn, which lets you optimize the number of artillery shots you get against them.
Okay.
Then the second thing, and the important one, was that my plan was to set up an ambush, hopefully inside the plantation, but I also put a hill and a town on the board. All things that knights can hide in or behind. And jump out of that ambush and roll the enemy up from the flank.
So that's astonishingly radical, because I think in I almost thought that part of the rules of ADLG was that you had to deploy an ambush with no troops in it, just to slow the enemy down. So to actually see an ambush with real troops in it must have been staggeringly shocking for anybody.
Well, that's what happened during the game, because I got virtually all the terrain fell on the right flank.
Okay.
And that's where I put command number 1, the one with the halberdiers and handgunners in it.
Okay.
And then the other 2 commands held in the center, and I dismounted all their knights. Under the theory that a dismounted knight is slightly better against an elephant than a mounted knight.
Yep. And they're going to go through the other stuff anyway, when dismounted.
Exactly, because if you get attacked by spearmen, well, the halberdiers kind of clear them out anyway.
Absolutely chew them up, yeah.
Two-handed weapons.
Yeah.
Two-handed weapons. Heavy weapons? Whatever they're called.
Whatever they're called, same thing. Halberdiers is okay. So did your opponent think you had a flank march, or that's an interesting...
He was certainly somewhat prepared for it, because opposite my ambush was his Siamese ally, who hung back and were sort of wary of whether it was a flank march or an ambush.
Okay.
But because my troops were so rapidly moving, when I sprung the ambush, I was able to pin the infantry and the elephants in place with my ambushing knights and crossbows, while the ambushing halberdiers went into the flank of the main body elephants. Okay,
so you actually had 2. Did you deploy the whole thing in ambush? Did you have 2
I had 2 ambush markers, yes. There was so much terrain, like 4 pieces of terrain fell in that one quadrant that I was able to put.
My God, that's absolutely full on, isn't it? I think I would have just been in shock by that. I think I would have lost if I was driving the command by the time I've seen knights boiling out of a wood on 2 ambush markers. Madness. Okay, good. So they came out, rolled up the flank, and what was the sort of the psychological effect of that cannon and the shooting? Did the enemy stop and try and rally? Because in some ways the answer is just charge forwards.
Yeah, what happened is that forced the cannon was also sort of more on the right center. That I think was also part of what encouraged the Siamese to hang back, because their general was included in an elephant unit.
Okay.
And so he does not want to get hit by a cannon. That is a bad moment.
No. That's not good. Okay.
Right. So I think that encouraged him to hang back, which then meant that the flank of his main advance was also exposed to my ambushing halberdiers.
Okay. So essentially then this was just the ambush jumped out and it rolled up that part of the army, and the support shooting from the artillery did that as well. So even on the other side, you must have had something else sort of left on the other side. Was the rest of the Khmer army advancing into thin air that you'd kind of refused the flank, or?
Well, the Khmer army advanced head on into all of my dismounted knights. Because I wanted to, again, pin him in place. It's one thing to have a flank attack, but a flank attack without frontal pressure doesn't really accomplish much.
Okay.
You need to force the enemy to stay in place while you come in on his flank and roll them up.
So you were actually advancing towards them with the dismounted knights as well as coming on the flank?
More slowly, but yes, moving up a little bit. And that was also to protect my ranged troops. By advancing up, you can kind of shelter your shooters.
Yeah, okay. So I always think that's one of the things that again in AGLG, it's getting that pacing of working out when are my troops going to lose, how long is it going to take, and then where are they winning and how quick is that going to take, and when do I commit them, when do I hold them back for just one turn or whatever. Was there a conscious bit of pacing in this, or was it let's just crush them because my flank march is all over them?
Oh, absolutely. The army is too fragile to use sort of willy-nilly. You have to be very conscious of your pacing. Every move has to be deliberate.
Okay, interesting. Wow. So suddenly then you're the guy with the knights, and you've trounced the elephant army, which is in theory the machine that chews up knights. You're top of the world after the first round, and then you get another Indian army. Effectively, you get the same army coming up twice with Tamil Indian, which has got what page 146. Which, looking at it, that's got pretty decent stuff in between the 6 elephants, hasn't it? In some ways,
it has a lot of impetuous troops. Even has some each impact.
Yep. So, was this a repeat? Did something else? Where did your terrain end up this time?
Well, this was a repeat of the same strategy to ambush aggressively and try to flank the elephants and roll them up. But the terrain fell a little bit differently, where it mostly fell on my opponent's side of the board. And there was a whole jumble of plantations and fields, like right smack in the middle of his lines.
Okay. So when that
happened, there was a hill on the left flank on my side of the board, which was perfectly placed for my ambush.
Okay. But when you get a load of junk terrain in the middle of your deployment area, particularly if you've got something like elephants or heavy foot, I guess your opponent's looking at 2 choices there. He's saying either I stack everything on one side of this, or I split my army and try and patch up that hole in the middle after I've gone past this terrain. So, and if there's a hill on one side in the open terrain, I guess there was a temptation to weight the opposite side in some way, just because you almost are forced to do it by the terrain that you put in the middle. How did it actually play out? What did they choose to do?
Well, it played out the way that you predicted, in that he heavily weighted his right flank. That's where he put most of his big troops, all of his elite impact guardsmen. I'm not quite sure what they are supposed to be. And a good chunk of his elephants. And he left mostly sort of riffraff to defend the center left.
Okay. So then, did that mean they were kind of too far away for your flank march to swing into his flank, or?
It did. It meant that it was not going to be sort of the immediate success that I experienced against the Khmer.
Okay. So they all kind of jumped over the hill and went, ta-da! And the enemy went, yeah, but we're a long way away, come on. It's kind of one of those things. Bring it on. Yeah.
But the one good thing was that they were so far away that I was actually able to perform a triple march with my infantry up the board and be basically at his board edge.
Okay.
At turn 1, before doing a right turn and rolling up towards his camp.
So actually, yes. So if you're able to put pressure on the camp of an army, even that attacks, these armies with elephants are not massive generally, are they? The camp can make quite a difference. So, did you actually in this one did you dismount the knights as well, or did you keep some of them mounted this time?
I only dismounted the knights on the far right flank, facing off against his right hook.
Okay, all right. So 2 lots of mounted knights doing stuff, yeah.
Right, because of the way that his deployment was, where he was so far off center, I figured that it was better to have my central knights be mounted so they can more easily maneuver up into a flanking position on his advance.
Okay, all right. So your opponent, he's pushing forward on his right, your troops on the left, if I've got it right.
Pushing forward on our respective lefts.
On your left, okay. So your ambush is behind the hill on the left. He's pushing forward on your right.
On his left, my right.
Yeah, on his left, your right. Your troops are dismounted to wait for him to come. So it's basically who can swing round faster, I guess, to get into the squishy edges of each other's army. So how did that pan out? Because you're kept the knights mounted this one. Did they hit things and go through, or were they able to avoid the elephants?
Well, it turned out both very well and not well for me, where my mounted knights were able to flank the elephants and engage them from 2, sometimes 3 sides at the same time. But the elephants rolled really well. That's the solution to everything, really.
Yes, that always does, doesn't it?
And so even though I wasn't losing, I wasn't winning quickly enough. The elephants were hanging around, they were tying me up. And so here I was using
if
5
you're committing
knights
2 or 3 knights, yeah, that's a lot, isn't it, to each elephant?
It's a lot. It's a lot. And they were, and then my ranged troops were kind of in the center of the board. And they did a good job shooting the elephants, whatever. My opponent didn't want to come in because of the threat of the flanking knights, but he had to because my ranged support was so effective. So he charged in there, and I believe destroyed everything on contact.
Ah, okay. so it's one of those that teaches you to laugh in the face of adversity, and then grimace once you should go to the bathroom, out of sight of everybody else, I guess. Yeah. So you've got a real swinging game. You've got some huge explosions. Were there any good elephant rampage moments, or did even that go against you as well?
The only elephant rampage of note was that one trampled forward to hurt my artillery.
Oh.
My artillery had killed an elephant earlier in the game, and so this was a form of revenge against it.
Right.
So the artillery takes a hit, and then it gets charged by some medium infantry, and manages to kill them, despite being down a bit. So, the artillery got through the fight unscathed, but pretty much everything else in the center and on the right got run over by elephants on top.
Okay, so there's carnage everywhere. It's like a bowling alley with elephants instead of pins. And so how did that game pan out then in the end?
So at the end, we were both like a single move away from each other's camp, and he ended up winning the game. He ended up winning the game because one of his elephants was surrounded on 2 sides by knights, and he ended up winning the combat and flicking the hit on me, which pushed me over my break limit.
Oh, well, it sounds like a fantastic game, and
it was really great.
Yeah, and again, it's a very different outcome from the first game, obviously, but it sounds like a large part of that was that the terrain really fell in your favour in the first one, and then in the second one, it was just not quite in the right place for repeating the same tactic. Then,
that's right. I think also my opponent had a better plan in the second game. His attack was a little more echelon, so he was kind of protecting the flank.
Okay, so he created a bit of a diagonal line rather than just going forwards and stepping in and giving a flank.
Right, exactly.
Okay, good. All right. So game 3. I'm trying to remember how you guys run things in the States. Is this game 3 on the same day?
Right. The tournament is a little bit strange in that we have 4 games on the first day and 1 game on the last day.
So then people drive back home for about 72 hours overnight and in shifts and things. That's the American way.
I'm not quite sure why they did that, because the following Monday was a holiday. So, in theory, we could have extended it out a little longer. But
maybe there's some war gamers out there who, with wives and families, I don't know. There must be 1 or 2, possibly, that have to get home. Otherwise,
I don't know any of them.
Nobody knows any of those people. No one admits to it, or even actually talks about it, do they? But I've got many wargaming friends. I couldn't even tell you their surnames really, but I know all their armies and some of the figures from many years. Right, so game 3, you're halfway through the day now, and a very different thing this time. Steppe Mongols, which could be any one of the Mongolian lists, and I can probably guess what it looks like.
It's actually literally called Steppe Mongolian.
Steppe Mongolian, that's the one. And I guess what. Heavy cavalry, medium cavalry, elite, shooters, quite small, 19-20 elements, something like that.
That's right.
That's basically it. So this is going to dance around more than you, isn't it? But it's testing you, the other theory with the army. You've tested the elephant theory to destruction, and now you're testing the kind of Turkic cavalry theory. So this must be an interesting one for terrain choice. Then was this you defending yet again?
Gosh, I forget if I.
Actually, no, it looks. I think you might have done.
No, I have to defend, because if I attack him, I can only attack him with steps, which is
okay. All right, that's a no-brainer, isn't it? Yeah.
I defended in the mountains, and the theory I have against invasion cavalry armies is to try to get a big piece of difficult or impassable terrain in the middle of their deployment zone. Because that greatly impedes their ability to retreat and maneuver.
Yeah.
And that happened. I got a nice big lake, nice big piece of impassable terrain in the middle of the board, and then my opponent rolled a 6 and got rid of it.
Oh, right. and the plan crumbles to dust. So you've now got a billiard table, or a pool table, or whatever the right term would be, transatlantically, and a Mongol army on a billiard table. So
my understanding is that billiards and pool are different games. But ADLG is a third game, not to be confused with the first.
I guess so, yeah. But as long as you don't lose any elephants down any of the pockets, I think the theory is still the same. They still work out the same way.
Right. So pretty much the only terrain was, very conveniently, the left side of the board was completely lined with steep hills and forests. But all of them touched the board edge, so they maybe extended, 4 UG in.
So it's a de facto waterway, really.
Right. And the only other terrain was a village on my far right flank.
Okay.
And so perhaps clinging to it, like a bit of flotsam in a storm, I developed my plan around using that village as an anchor to kind of protect my flank and kind of pivot out to roll the Mongols up. Sort of a revolving door.
It's a very difficult thing to not do, isn't it? You sit there, you create if you're anything like me, you create a defensive position, and you think, right, I've got this great defensive position. What am I going to do now? I'm going to advance out of it. That's my strategy, really. which always seems to be a bit tricky when you get about halfway through it. Really, when I do it. So, how did it pan out for you against this one? And how did these mixed knight and crossbow units fare against Mongol heavy cavalry, Mongol medium cavalry?
Well, my opponent did a very clever thing, and he sent a small command on a flank line, which obviously could only show up on my right flank because the left flank was cluttered with them.
Okay.
And because there was a flank march coming up on my right, I couldn't advance.
True, yeah, because
my army is so small, I don't really have anybody I can kind of leave behind.
Yeah,
true. So as I move up, the flank march kind of comes in.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, because the flank march panics anybody who's within 4 UD of it when you show up, that the village was indefensible as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any troops in the village would immediately just get routed off the board.
Just flee, yeah.
And the flank march.
Yep.
And my opponent combined this with a very aggressive strategy of his 2 nearly identical commands of medium, elite, shooty cavalry, along with a couple of heavy impact shooty cavalry coming up right in my face. And he refused the center on me because I had deployed my ordinary commander in the center.
Okay.
And I believe his theory was to tax that commander's ability to go left or right. He can't really split his forces.
Yeah, because that's just got 3 knights and a couple of light horse, hasn't it? So that's a tricky one, and that's a tricky one to split. Certainly, if you split the knights into a group, you do end up with a gap that the heavy and medium cavalry will charge straight into.
But it also ended up, I think, being a bit of a mistake because that was my best counter for the cavalry. Because the medium cavalry are highly vulnerable to the Stratiots, who are light horse, Javelin elite.
Yes.
You just beat them if they charge them.
Yep, yeah, you're pretty much up at well, no, you're evens at combat, but you're both elite, aren't you? So it's very doable.
And then I'm faster than them, and then I can get behind them and stop them from evading. So what happened is that I made this charge into his cavalry with my knights while my Stradians maneuvered on the rear, and his cavalry just kicked my butt. I lost virtually all the rolls against him. It did not go very well at all.
Did you know? Because again, I obviously not having been there, but we've all done that. And is that you lost all the rolls, or if you look back, you go, actually, he had some overlaps and stuff like that? Because it's sometimes it happens, and sometimes it's no, I just lost out. And then you look back at, well, did I really? You know, were they just wider than me, and I was forced into being a bit more bold?
Oh, absolutely. It's a little bit of bad rolls and a little bit of bad generalship.
They always seem to come together, don't they?
They really do. They really do.
It's just a strange coincidence, that. Strange coincidence, yeah.
But then conversely, on the right flank by the village, where I had my halberdiers, my crossbowmen, my handgunners, and 2 units of knights, defending the camp against the Mongol flank march, they held out brilliantly. So the most vulnerable troops in the army were able to repel the Mongolian assault.
Yeah.
While the favored troops did not.
Yeah. But again, you know, I guess with the crossbowmen, you ping off 1 or 2 hits off a few Mongol cavalry, and suddenly their effectiveness before they get into combat is dramatically reduced.
Right, and also because I kind of sandwich my crossbowmen in between and slightly behind my more proper fighting troops, it's difficult to engage them.
Difficult to engage them. Okay, so you're being kind of swarmed on all sides. You're fighting a slightly offensive defensive game, which is a tough one with a very mobile army to hang on to. Your Stradians are doing well, other people are doing badly. So how did that one pan out in the end? Then I'm seeing a big fight near your baseline next to this village with things coming at you from all sides, kind of like in I'm just trying to think of the film, but it will come back to me. It's a Starship Troopers almost.
Starship Troopers. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was going to say Days of Wine and Roses, but
right. Possibly not. I don't know. Yeah.
But so the Mongolians tried to infiltrate some troops to the village, and I had moved my handgunners out. And then as soon as the Mongolians came into the village, the handgunners went back in and promptly killed 2 or 3 units of light horse and cavalry.
So the handgunners were able to go into the village and take on cavalry?
Right, because the cavalry, I believe they're at -3.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
The handgunners are at 0 and they're elite. And so
they're going to butcher cavalry, and so the cavalry were trying to push through the village because they thought they were committed elsewhere. But
right, because I'm a noted military genius. I had deployed my camp right up flush against the village. So anything that moved through the village would sack the camp.
Would get 4 points. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
That's worth a punch, isn't it? Yeah.
And then what happened is when the handgunners stormed out and they attacked, they started giving me overlaps against the Mongolians. And so at this point, we both had breakpoint and 20. Okay. And he was at 18. I was at 17. We were both teetering on the balance. On the edge there. And on the last turn of the game, what happened is that I was able to kill his included general on the flank marching command with my flanking handgunners and some proper troops fighting him frontally. And then he won every other combat.
Right.
And so, overwhelmingly. So the result of the game was a draw, but I inflicted 20 points of losses on him, and he inflicted, I think, about 30 on me.
Right. Okay. But it's a draw. It's they all count. It's a mutual destruction. You get more points for that than just a normal draw. So, and it sounds like there was quite a lot of sport all across the table.
Right, very bloody. A lot of truly inept generalship on my part, but.
But I think it sounds like your opponent putting cavalry through a village when there's elite handgunners around. But must have contributed his part there as well, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he did that. I think it was just the novelty of the experience.
Yeah, it's so tempting though. If you think, I only get through a couple of moves and it's taking points away from the main fight, and if I get one through, I eat the baggage. It's 4 points. I could have made that mistake quite easily, I think, just and justified it to myself quite possibly. Good. So you're now into the fourth game of the epic marathon on day one, and you're getting an army that's got almost as complicated a list as your own, the medieval Spanish, which again can be all sorts of different sub-nationalities and stuff like that. It's got impetuous knights usually, and then one of the questions with it is, do you go Almugavars for those high quality impact elite foot, or do you go for something that's I guess a bit more like the type of army that you've put together, that's about mobility and knights and good quality light horse, but I guess in an elephant period, it must be tempting to take Almugavars to chew up the rubbish infantry between elephants, and it may be just tempting to take Almugavars anyway because they're pretty cool.
They're very good. They're very good. And you have, I think that's pretty much summarizes the Spanish style. You can either do Almugavars or you can do the Jinetes, the light horse. And he went for the Almugavar option. I'm not sure if that's Castile or Aragon. I'm not sure.
I think it's Aragon, possibly. Aragon. Oh, no, it's in both, Aragon and Castile.
Oh, okay. Well, he had a lot of Almugavars, so...
Okay. So that's possibly Aragonese then, I think. They have up to 4, it looks like it. The other one only has 2. So, okay, so there's Almugavars there. There's some impetuous knights. So it's in Spain. I guess the battle was in the plain. Does it always work like that?
That's exactly right. I believe that's the battle in Spain stays
mainly in the plain. Yes, indeed. Good. We're all in tune there. It's almost as if we rehearsed. Excellent. So what have you got? A kind of normal agricultural bit of everything kind of kicking around? Someone with the Almugavars wants fields. You're not so sure you do.
Right.
Just
I went for a more open battlefield this time, so I put a lot less terrain on the board because I figured the Almugavars would want to be there.
Yeah.
I did get a nice hill in my deployment zone to put my cannon on.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Not well placed for an ambush, but I was attacking this game anyway, so doesn't make much of a difference there. Ambushing only really matters, I think, if you're the defender.
No, absolutely, yeah. There's nowhere else to put them really if you're attacking, and you should be. If you're choosing to attack, you want to be across the table anyway.
Right. So my opponent had a similar army composition to me. He had more spearmen and fewer knights, but unlike me, he didn't have combined arms commands.
Okay.
So on my left flank, his right, on my left flank was all of his cavalry. So I'm not sure, 5 or 6 knights. Okay. One of them was elite, and some elite light horse. Then in the middle was the pride of Spain, which was about half a dozen mediocre spear with some light infantry shielding it.
Okay.
And then on the right, kind of vaguely with lots of different ambush markers, ended up being a whole bunch of Almugavars and some crossbowmen.
Okay. So looking at that army and seeing, did you think the spears are there to bulk it out and be too wide to attack, or are they a target, or because mediocre spear is one of those things that I'm convinced there must be a way to use it, but I'm not convinced I'm capable of finding out how to do it.
Yeah, I'm not very convinced about the virtues of medium spear. Mediocre spear.
Mediocre spear, yeah.
Yeah, or medium spear for that matter. They're not much for combat against anything, and they're very vulnerable to shooting. But they do have the advantage that knights don't really like to attack them frontally.
Yeah.
It's not the worst thing in the world, but you don't want to do it. You don't have to.
Yeah, it's going to take you a while to chew through them, and then the other guy's knights are going to be doing something. So maybe they do work as a big cheap kind of do I don't I. You could go wrong piling into them, I guess. Yeah, just because of what it means the rest of the army can do.
If we go back to our sort of 3 paradigms of builds that you have the elephants, you have the medieval Europeans, and you have the steppe nomads. The spears, I believe, would be decently good against elephants and Europeans, but really just total dead weight against the nomads.
Yeah, because there's just not enough of them to start pushing someone off the table with that. You've got to be fielding 20 plus to be getting into position to do that. You've got to be using Russ, not just 6.
And then they're being shot to pieces all the way, and just not.
Yeah, you lose 6-8 points just with them being shot by light horse sometimes. Okay. Exactly. So they're in the middle. You've got, I guess, knights and Almogavars either side, and it's a fairly openish terrain. So what, did you concentrate somewhere? Where did you choose to put the punch in this one?
Well, I put most of my troops on the left side, the relatively open left side, under the theory that they could use that nice hill to shoot from, and then the knights to kind of ride forward across the open terrain and try to outflank the Spanish.
Okay.
And then I had my few medium spear and my swordsmen and handgunners facing off against the Almogavars. Because if you fight them in bad terrain, you can hold up for a turn or two.
Okay.
But then I rapidly determined that my opponent was in no mood to advance and no mood to fight me at all. I think perhaps because he was afraid of my cannon.
A great psychological effect of the cannon. Yeah. I
think the lone cannon there made him just back up.
Yeah, no, it can do. It absolutely can do. And I can look back at games in competitions that I can say I lost that because of the cannon, because they look easy to attack, but you get bogged down and suddenly they're shooting in your turn and the opposition's turn, and you do kind of have to avoid them because they can knock 2, 3, 4 points of damage off someone who's advancing to them quite quickly. And in some of these smaller armies, that's a real problem.
Yeah, so what I did here was because I had to attack his line, I did it in kind of a 3-step process. So the first step is that you move up your knights slightly ahead of your crossbows. So your crossbows are within 4 UD and they're shooting.
Yep.
And the enemy knights can't charge you. Then what you do is then you kind of shuffle some knights around the flank. Try to overlap the enemy line. Then
you've got that third command with just the 3 knights that can do that because it's just there with the light horse javelin, the Stradius, whatever. Yeah.
Right, and that's what they were doing. They were holding my far left flank.
Okay.
And then what you do is then you advance forward and you zock the whole line of shot troops with your crossbowmen, while you have a unit or 2 of knights shuffling around the flank. So that way, the enemy can't avoid the flank charge. Okay. And hopefully by this time, his knights have been softened up a little bit, so they're not going to ride right over the crossbow.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a bum job for the crossbowman, isn't it? Really, it's like
yes,
guys, you're signed up to die today. What's the nobility deal with the enemy from the flank? But I guess you pay your money and you don't get a choice really if you're a medieval mercenary. That's the way it works.
Yeah, okay. My halberdiers had a similar bum job facing off against 5 units of Almogavars, where I feel like 1 unit of Almogavars is better than both of my halberdiers together, so 5 is kind of a hard ask.
Yeah, that's quite a lot, isn't it? Yeah.
But so while the medium infantry was sort of putting the enemy, capturing the enemy in the zock, putting them in place, the knights were preparing to get overlaps, get flank charges.
Okay.
And that's eventually what happened, is I got units of knights into either end of his line, one attacking his knights, one attacking the mediocre spearmen, and I kind of rolled up his main battle line from both ends.
Okay. So this almost sounds like that thing we talked about earlier about the pacing of putting your troops into combat, knowing they are going to lose, but the time when they get committed means that the rest of your army's then got time to do something much more decisive and swing it in your favour.
Right, I mean, that's exactly right. It's like, what I find wins in ELG, what really wins is rolling lots of 6s. That's the best.
Yeah, yeah.
But But otherwise, you want to get either incredibly lopsided matchups, like knights against medium infantry in the open, right?
Yeah.
Or you need to engineer a flank attack.
Yeah.
You're not really going to win a melee decisively and lopsidedly in your favor unless you do one of those two things.
Sure. Yeah, it's getting those right things. So this sounds like this was a game that was going very much the right way for you.
Right. It was the fourth game of evening, so it took a little bit more mental fortitude than I really wanted to invest.
Was there a bar in the gaming shop? Or
yes.
Excellent. Right. Okay. That's okay then. That helps. All right. So it sounds like that was a win, and you're off for whatever post gaming thing that Americans do that in the UK would be an Indian meal almost inevitably. So is there a US DC area ADLG post competition standard form of dining, or did you just insist everyone went for chicken?
No, I just went to one of the local sort of hipster establishments, which serves craft beer of various kinds.
Excellent. You grew a large bushy mustache and a check shirt and fitted right in. No, as long as you didn't talk to anybody about wargaming,
right.
Nobody can tell the difference. That's all good.
Yeah, I think I had nitros, which are injected with nitrogen rather than carbonated.
Ah, okay, yeah, right.
Very, very tasty.
Yeah, no, I buy that. So then after 4 games, and some nitro beer and I'm sure a hearty American breakfast, you're into the last game on a bright and sunny morning, and you're playing medieval Scots, which I've got one of those. I've painted it up. Obviously it just sometimes has different flags and appears as Low Countries as well, which I got after having a horrendous experience against at the Worlds in Belgium a few years ago, when I think all of us UK players were thinking that we were starting to get the hang of ADLG, and this was our first big international tournament. And I think a 15-year-old lad from Italy wiped the floor with me by just throwing a wall of poor quality pikemen at me that I had no real answer to deal with, because I'd just not expected how quickly it could run across the table and overwhelm my small, complicated but not very good force. So it holds some joy and some horrors for me, that army. So how did you approach that with your dancing small kind of mobile army, knowing that there's probably going to be a load of men with sticks?
Well, this is a genius insight, which I believe that you can first attribute to Alexander the Great. But there are really two plans. You can either defend or you can attack.
I'm buying it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was playing medieval Italians. There are a lot of secular humanists. They're reading all the classics, so I figured that they have their, Vigisis and their Caesar well in mind.
Yes, absolutely.
So when you deal with pike and you have knights, if you're defending, you want to have your knights mounted. Because if you're defending, that means the Scots or whomever, Swiss, whatever they are, have to charge you. And pike does not want to charge knights. You don't want to do that.
No.
Conversely, and somewhat counterintuitively, if you're attacking, you want to dismount. Because dismounted foot knights are at least okay charging against pike.
Against mediocre pike, I think they're better, really.
Right. I think they're a tiny bit better than in front combat. Yeah. Because
actually, I suppose if they're elite, yes, yours would be ordinary though. So that's
mine's well.
That's a bit more of a toss-up, isn't it? Yeah.
So what I did is I attacked again and attacked in agriculture and got terrain all over the board. There was just terrain everywhere. So you ended up with a plantation right smack dab in the middle of the board. Right in the middle.
Great. That's good, isn't it? Yeah.
Really good. Yeah. Really good thing. And then on the right flank, there was a number of fields, kind of running up and down the length of the field, like 3 fields back to back to back, all on the right. And so, what I anticipated that the Scots would put their Highlanders in the field.
Yeah, that's the medium foot swordsman bow that you almost feel you have to have with the army, otherwise it just becomes a bit too dull to use.
Yeah, exactly.
They might not be that good, but you just got to kind of have them.
Right. So I figured that if I attacked on the right flank with my rough terrain troops and my dismounted knights, I would be able to flank the pike line, and the pike line would be unable to advance quickly frontally because I've filled that plantation up with crossbowmen and more dismounted knights.
Okay, all right.
Again, you need to pin the enemy frontally while you're working the flank attack. It doesn't work to just sit there. And my opponent deployed basically as I had anticipated. He put an enormous block, 12 units, something like that, of meteor for pike in the middle of the board with dismounted men-at-arms at either end.
Okay.
And then he had, as predicted, the Highlanders. The Highlanders occupying the fields, and then cleverly, beyond them, all the way out on my right flank, his left, he had a tiny command of 3 French knights.
Yes, this is what the Italian lad had as well. I think that caught me out because it shouldn't have been there, and they're really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things where I kind of got into my head that both the French and the Highlanders were allies, so you couldn't have both of them.
Yeah.
But I actually don't think either of them are allies. Maybe one of them is.
No, I think the Highlanders are, but you can have up to 4 French knights. Yeah.
Yeah. So that made things interesting, but not too terrible because the French can't come into the fields.
Yes.
Especially if I dismount my knights and I defend the field against them, yada. So the game starts off well enough. I move up very quickly, very aggressively in the middle to seize that plantation while hanging back a little bit on the right to kind of draw the Highlanders forward.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to want to come forward, aren't they? They've that's basically what they do. You don't choose Highlanders and sit them there because they're those kind of troops who, no matter what their unit stats are or their qualifications are, you are going to convince yourself that they're just going to win because they're cool and they're wearing kilts.
We've all seen Rob Roy, the final sword fight at the end. How do you not with that kind of?
No, you can't mess with that. You can't mess with that. Yeah.
Can't mess with that. Yeah. So here my opponent committed a mistake, where he attacked very aggressively on his left, my right, with the Highlanders and the French Knights, but he did not move up his pike.
Okay, so you've got 2 little commands that have outdistanced the main line of pedestrians and have started to create their own flanks.
Right. I believe that the pike were afraid. First, they were afraid of my single cannon popping at them.
Yep.
And secondly, they were afraid of my third command, the one with the 3 knights and the 2 light horse.
Okay.
Which were maneuvering aggressively on the left. Putting up a show of force.
Yeah. Okay.
So I believe that the pike were intimidated into quiescence. And as a result, the attacking Highlanders, who also had some longbowmen, I want to say.
Yes, they do. Yeah. With them.
Some sort of native lowlanders with ranged weapons supporting them, moving up in the fields. But then they left their flank completely wide open to a flank attack from my halberdiers, who were occupying the central plantation. So my halberdiers, seeing an opportunity, decided to take it, and they charged right in. At the same time, I maneuvered my foot knights and my crossbowmen who were in the fields up to zock the Highlanders and prevent them from responding to the flank attack. And that all seemed to go very well. I felt very good about this. And then I lost every combat, and my guys just died.
So basically, my theory about Highlanders is actually true. They just outperform things just because they're cool.
So that's exactly right. And so I had the troops flanked, I had them outnumbered, I had them right where I wanted, and I lost everything. And
it just all got a bit cinematic, really, I guess.
Right. And so at this point, I did what you should never do, which was I took counsel of my despair.
Right.
And just kind of gave up on the game.
Right. Yeah, we've done it. We've all done it. Yeah, it's like, let's just attack stuff and see what happens.
Yeah, I was sort of like, this doesn't matter. The whole game's over anyway.
Yeah.
Because I lost about, I don't know.
This game system's rubbish. Oh, it's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, I lost about 15 or 16 cohesion points out of 20.
Oh, yeah. That's tricky, isn't it? Yeah.
So I was like, that's it. It's over.
Yeah.
And then what happened is I had left one unit of knights on the right flank mounted. To kind of maybe just sort of threaten the flank of the French a little bit if they decided to enter the field. And this knight decided that he was having none of it. And he started to fight the French and fight the Highlanders one at a time, killing them one at a time.
Well, in the field whilst mounted?
Actually, no. He started off in the open.
Okay.
He got charged by the French knights.
Yeah.
Killed one immediately.
Okay.
Then slid over on the next round, killed the next guy. Right?
Okay.
Charged into the field, hit a Highlander in the flank, killed him.
Yeah, well, that's tempting. If you can hit them in the flank, that is actually worth doing, isn't it? Because the field's a bad, but a flank is a flank is a flank.
Exactly. And then he ended up, at this point, the only guy left in the command was that one unit. So I had attached the general to him. I was committing the general every fight.
Yep.
Right? And then, full of, not piss and vinegar, I don't know, wine and al dente pasta.
Yep.
The knight charged the lone remaining unit of French gendarmes in the rear. Mm-hmm. And the French won the fight, rolled the one to kill my general, and because of the cohesion points that they inflicted by killing the general, that was enough to give me the victory.
So it's all collapsed. Then you've nearly clawed it back with some ridiculous heroics, and then normal services resumed. Just when you're almost thinking, I could walk away with this and try and find some way of telling this as a story of luck rather than a story of skill rather than just luck. But then you go, it all balanced out in the end. Then fantastic. So you're done then. You've gone down to the pike. Did you even engage the pikemen at all? Did the pikemen just sort of sit there and watch while this kind of got involved with all the foot in the terrain?
Yeah, the only thing that happened to the pike was that they took a couple of cohesion losses from my crossbowmen shooting them, which they damaged. And they did nothing the whole game. They moved up to kind of threaten my troops in the plantation. But because you don't impose a zoc into terrain that disorders you, I was just able to walk away.
Fine, yeah. So you nearly beat the Scots without taking on the pike, and they beat you without using the pike.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Amazing. Okay. So we're now whatever it is, Sunday mid morning. You're 2-1, which is not a bad result. It's clean, isn't it? It's 2 wins, 2 losses, and a draw, and a mutual destruction draw. So that's pretty good. And it looks like your team finished pretty much middle of the pack as well, which was a scratch team, wasn't it? Put together from various people. Right. And the team, I'm just looking. So the team got a prize for outperforming expectations.
Exactly. Well, what it really was is that we had 3 sort of mediocre to poor players, and then one fellow from Michigan who apparently is the best player in America. I don't know. That's what people are telling me.
All right.
And so he did all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And so he ended up winning best general for the early period with his African Vandals.
Yeah, that's a fun army. When that works, that really works.
Then our Crusader player, who was a Frenchman, playing medieval French, army of Saint Louis and all that. Feudal French, perhaps?
Possibly, yep.
Yes. He did not have the best tournament. And then our enemies of the Crusade, playing Muscovites, had sort of mixed results. The conclusion was that he would have done better if he played his army at all before putting it on the field for the tournament. Yes,
that's all good. Yeah, I do find that does help, and I still haven't learned that lesson after many years because it's just practicing's too hard, isn't it? Really, it's good. But so this was actually your first ADLG tournament then?
My first proper one. I played in some impromptu ones back when I lived up in New England, but it was my first real one with prizes and stuff.
So how was it then? Is this something you're going, yep, that was fun? Because I know there's the inevitable question about tournament players and the rest of it, but I've in 20 mumble years, possibly 30 mumble years of doing this, I just regard it as a chance to meet and play somebody who you've never met before and have a beer with them afterwards. And there's vanishingly small tournamentitis out there, and I think a lot of it's down to you. So you were happy with that? Good results, good people, good beer.
Yeah, I had an awful lot of fun. The beer is always good. Well, if you pick the right one.
Of course, definitely.
And I had a great time in all 5 of my games.
No, they sound like really, really entertaining games. Really, they all were pretty close. They could have gone either way. There was some good cinematic moments in all of them. It sounds like a hoot, actually, a real hoot.
Well, I think a lot of that comes from sort of taking more of a gambling approach to my play style. Because if you ask yourself, how am I going to win? Rather than simply trying to not lose, you end up with more dynamic gameplay.
And having an army that's on the front foot and is all mounted, it gives you that chance to do stuff. And then you can also dismount and become an infantry army, which is good. But I can actually now see the opportunities of not just starting this list with 2 poor pikemen, halberdier in between, something on the flank, and then what else am I going to buy? I can see how this works as a mounted army as well. So just to kind of wrap up, if you were changing that army from okay, I've done 5 games with it, what do I know now? What would I change? What would you change out of that?
Well, I think that if you kept the same basic approach to the army, mostly knights and crossbows, that sort of thing. One thing I might do would be to include another unit of light infantry.
Okay.
To, increase the breakpoint of the army to act as a screen for the knights. That would be a change worth considering. Another thing.
I think that's a thing that is probably a good thing to look at with most armies. I'm trying to draw up an army list for a competition in Greece at the moment, and I do find that you kind of shed the light infantry through the iterations of an army list, and then you end up with less than you actually really should have. And it might be almost one of those rules of thumb that once you've iterated an army list a few times on paper or on a spreadsheet, almost the last act should be going back and going, stick in one more light infantry, because you're going to end up with too few. I think it just seems to go towards.
You really want 1 or 2 for command.
Yeah, you do. You definitely do. And it's easy to shed them and go, oh, I can actually get a better real troop for that. But then you get shot and you're a factor down, and your real troops are just not very good. Okay. So adding the light infantry, which I think is a general lesson from there. Anything else? Any other options?
Another thought would be to add in some medium cavalry.
Yeah, because you had 3 light cavalry, which the default is usually 2. bumping one of those up to medium.
Because I was taking the Venetian option.
Yeah.
You have to take 2 Scaliots.
Yeah.
You have to take the mounted crossbow.
Okay. But can that mounted crossbowman be in cavalry? Or
both the Scaliots and the crossbowmen can be medium cavalry.
Okay. All right.
So I think that's another change that I would do is switch one of those 3 units to medium cavalry.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So pretty close, but a couple of tweaks could make it more interesting. But would you use the army again in this format?
I think so. I think that because I designed it to be more of a flexible, reactive army, it can take on virtually anything with some expectations.
Well, I think that's right. And it sounds like it created some interesting games, and it meant that you could be on the front foot, the back foot. You had options to play all those games differently, which that army structure gave you that maybe a different structure would have been slightly more formulaic about how it had to be used. So I think that that's a really interesting approach. It's as I said at the beginning, it's a very different way to the way I would think about using the army myself. But I think talking to you and seeing how this played has pointed out that I'm not thinking about how this army goes together. I'm putting it together without thinking, and to actually take another step forward and just look at it as a blank piece of paper. There's all sorts of options. So look, I think that's been brilliant. Hopefully the recordings worked okay. We've not just been having a chat for no purpose at all, and which could be terrible. But no, Henry, thank you, and your Venetian stories, your chicken stories, and your beer stories, all of which are excellent. And hopefully we can do this again at some point with another competition and another set of armies. And we will try and get this uploaded and online within the next few days. So thank you very, very much for your time and for your write up and for contributing so much.
Sure. Well, I really enjoy your website, and I read everything that you put up there. Well, most of it.
Some of it's rubbish, isn't it? I'd skip some of it, but it's no, thank you very much for that. But no, I think it's good that you're now a part of it. So thank you for that. And before we lapse into far too much self-congratulation, probably time to cut it off because I probably do need to go have my dinner. Right, thank you very much. I will catch you next time. Thanks, Henry.
Okay, I'll be in touch. Bye.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye. Well, guys, that's the end of the podcast. So thank you for listening. Thanks once again to Tucker for taking part and making it all possible. And I think I'm pretty pleased with that format. If any of you want to chat to me about an army or a competition or anything else wargaming related, just drop me a line at info@Madaxeman.com and we'll get in touch, see if we can hook something up on Skype and add you to the audio library. So thank you for listening to the podcast and keep looking out on Madaxeman.com for more of this sort of rubbish but with pictures.